Hey everyone, Steve Kwan here with Jesse Walker and Jeff Shaw back for another little mini episode reaction for Fighting Matters. Wanted to expand on the last conversation that we had about the J-Rod situation at B Team. There have been some details that have come out since then. We now have a little bit more info. I really don't want to unpack that and belabor the point though, but what I'd really like to actually do is maybe expand on the community reaction to the situation. I think that's maybe where we'll be better suited to unpack. I'll just provide a quick recap, though, for people who kind of are late to the news. A few days ago, Jacob Rodriguez, aka J-Rod, there was an announcement that he had been removed from B Team due to inappropriate conduct regarding some of the women in the gym. J-Rod also posted a video acknowledging that this happened and agreed that it was the right move. So pretty clearly a coordinated response between them. At the time, not that much was officially known about what had actually transpired. A little bit more has been shared since then by some of the parties involved, including by J-Rod. Jesse, Jeff, I'll try to recap. If you have a better understanding or if I misrepresent, please do let me know. But it sounds like the crux of it was that it was identified that he basically had a photo vault of inappropriate photos on his phone of some of the women training in the gym. And he kind of organized it into, I guess, folders, and also found porn stars who looked like those women and kind of organized it in this way. And this led to some interesting pushback from some people in the BJJ community. Most of the people, of course, that I talked to in the circles that I run in were 100% on board with the fact that removing him was the right decision, and also 100% on board with acknowledging that the B Team did a great job of actually handling the situation professionally. But a lot of people within the Jiu-Jitsu community did actually push back because they felt that the punishment against him was unfair. And the argument that I heard in many cases was, something along the lines of, well, he didn't commit a crime, or alternately, these photos, they may or may not, I'm not even entirely sure, but it sounds like some of them may have been publicly shared. So it doesn't sound like he was using AI to generate photos or getting access to photos that were private. It sounds like a lot of these were photos that were available. And so the question then becomes, in this case, if someone were to do this in your gym and they're just grabbing and archiving photos of the women in your gym that were accessible, is that still something that is considered inappropriate behavior? And I would say definitely, absolutely. I'm guessing the people on the call here would also say the same. But there was pushback from people in the jiu-jitsu community that basically said, hey, all this guy did was download and archive a bunch of photos, and there's nothing wrong with that. And now his career's been ruined for no good reason. Obviously, I disagree with that take, but Jesse, Jeff, you guys are gym owners. I'm just an internet jiu-jitsu opinion guy. So I will turn it over to you two to maybe elaborate on your thoughts.
It sounds like a lot of people are big fans of the concept of due process.
In certain cases.
But only in certain cases, right?
Well, so to Jesse, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I guess I could start. That's fine. Yeah, I mean, we've certainly had a number of people ask to leave our community for probably less. I don't think it's a matter of legality. What he did, what he was purported to have done was clearly in poor taste. If for nothing else, the victims, which I think they are, a lot of them probably know who they are, and his continued presence in that facility makes it an impossibility for those people to continue training there in any sort of meaningful way, at no fault of their own. So it's very clear to me that the damaged parties need to be protected, and the person, regardless of whether they did something illegal or not, it was creepy, it was weird and gross. We don't need that in our business. I don't need it in mine. B team doesn't need it in theirs. It was so clearly the right call. So yeah, Jeff, go.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the point Jesse made is exactly the right one because it's not about punishment, crime, or whether the punishment fits the crime, although I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. It's about what is the impact on the community, the gym community. If you let him stay, what message does that say to the people he hurt? What message does that send to the other people as we're on the mat knowing what this dude did, introducing something into the space that just can't really be there? And I would also push back on the fact that his career's been ruined, right? Jiu-Jitsu is not a constitutional right. And there are plenty of academies in Austin, Texas. Humans are capable of moving. And, this is not the same thing as taking away someone's freedom. This is someone facing consequences for a choice that they made, and I would say pretty predictable consequences. The other thing I want to mention is, this is where I get mad at internet commenters. And look, I want to be careful about talking about specifics of this case because I don't know the particulars more than anybody else, and I don't know the folks involved. But I will say broadly, it's hard for me to take seriously people that are like, he wasn't convicted of a crime or anything. When you look around the jiu-jitsu community, and everybody listening will listen to this and see what image conjures up in your head, do you know people in the jiu-jitsu community who have been convicted of sex crimes that have not been drummed out of the jiu-jitsu community? The answer is yes, you do. Or people who have covered up the crimes committed by other people in the jiu-jitsu community. Of course you do. We all do. Matthew Maldonado, the guy who participated in the Lloyd Irvin incident, Lloyd himself, right? These are folks that trained in the community for years. They found a place to train. And so I really did think B Team handled it well with that response. I thought they handled it swiftly. I thought they handled it directly. I'm a big believer in clear, transparent and direct communication because life is all about what you can do and what you can't do, or what you can accept and what you can't accept. And it sends a message if you accept that behavior, right? It sends, if it helps you, if you're listening to this and you're having like an emotional response to like the particular crimes involved, take the specifics out and just think, imagine the actions of one person cause 5 people to feel uncomfortable training in that space. Is that worth it? Is that the kind of community you want to create? Especially if the people that are harmed have less power than the person who created the harm. And the answer for me is always going to be pretty simple.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm going to tee up some comments here, and I just want to clarify that these are not comments that I agree with or endorse. I'm just sharing some of the arguments that I've seen in favor of J-Rod, mostly so that we can dissect them and dismantle them. Something that I've also heard people say on that topic is, well, J-Rod is, one of their marquee guys. Isn't he more valuable to B Team than a bunch of randos who are, like white belts at the gym that no one's ever heard of? Why are we prioritizing them over this athlete who quote unquote matters more? I mean, I think people who have listened to me talk about this extensively probably know where my stance is on this, but what do you guys think of that argument? Because that is often the case, right? When this kind of thing happens in a jiu-jitsu gym, usually it's because of the exploitation of a power dynamic. So it means that the person who's doing the abuse is going to be more senior and more quote unquote important to the gym, which I think is part of why people, why they get away with this all the time. But I'd love to know how you guys attack that, right? If someone says, well, this guy is a key piece of the gym, we need him here, we don't necessarily need these other students who are accusing him. What are your thoughts on that?
If powerful people can undermine your academy's values, your academy has no values. If powerful people can break the laws, then the laws don't matter. And for me, it's actually the opposite. How does that white belt become a successful competitive purple belt if they never get the chance? If they get drummed out of this space, or even, obviously our gym competes. We're not, and I'm very proud of our competition record, but we're not like a top tier competition team or anything. But the idea of putting like jiu-jitsu competition success ahead of human values is just so gross to me. If you're no one, it's funny to me because in jiu-jitsu you see all these folks that say jiu-jitsu's we're against bullying, right? We're really anti-bullying. It's the best way to build confidence, best way to defend yourself against bullies. Look, if you support powerful people that are harming less powerful people, you're not anti-bullying. Full stop.
Well, I mean, even if you look at it from a pocketbook perspective, number one, I don't put a lot of monetary value on most jiu-jitsu athletes. I mean, let's be real honest. We're not making a ton of money, except for maybe a handful of, guys. The number of people that you potentially lose, and the number of people that potentially just never walk through the door to begin with, if people, bad actors are left in place, is really hard to calculate. But I can guarantee you that number is way higher than whatever value J-Rod was bringing to that club.
The other thing I want to talk about too is whenever you hear about things like this, people act like this is some big criminal case and that it needs to be treated accordingly and that people are innocent until proven guilty. And we need to make it clear, and Jeff, you touched on this earlier, we need to have a higher standard of moral conduct than just saying, well, he didn't get convicted of a crime, so it's okay. Right? I mean, would you allow this in your gym? That's the thing that I often ask people. I mean, of course, if someone actually got convicted of doing something awful, I would hope most of us would agree that they can be judged and treated accordingly because of that. Although in the jiu-jitsu space, I'm not so sure that people do agree with that. But a lot of the things that fall under just general poor conduct, they never make it to a criminal case. A lot of these things are not actually crimes, but we should still be able to treat people and judge people based on their actions and their conduct, regardless of whether it technically crosses the threshold of was this a crime and were they convicted. We have to have higher standards of conduct in the jiu-jitsu community than just saying, well, the courts didn't put him in jail, so it's okay. I mean,
Totally.
the example that I give is, I mean, think of the things that would get you kicked out of a jiu-jitsu gym. We talk about this all the time. And even like very, very conservative jiu-jitsu coaches will say, look, if you got someone in the training room who's unsafe and they're freaking out and they're not listening to the coach, you got to remove them for the safety of the team. Is it a crime to go too hard in jiu-jitsu? No, not really. But at the end of the day, we have to have a higher standard of conduct than was it a crime? There's a lot of reasons, completely valid, why you might want to tell someone you can't train here, right? A lot of them come down to the safety of the people in the room. That might mean an unsafe training partner in terms of how they roll. It might mean an unsafe training partner in terms of how they creep on the women in the gym. And I would encourage people to think, if they are in favor of J-Rod's argument here and they're defending him, I would ask them, how would you feel if you were the target in this case? How would you feel if you, as the jiu-jitsu coach or even a jiu-jitsu student, right? And, you go to the gym and you find out one day that some dude in the gym has built like this weird photo library of you and organized all of your photos next to like male porn stars who look like you, right? I mean, how would you feel about that? Would you come onto the internet and say, oh, well, yeah, I've got the guy's got this weird creepy sex vault of photos of me, but you know what? It's not a crime. So I'm just going to just keep training with this dude. We have to have a higher standard of conduct. And one of my pet peeves in the jiu-jitsu community is people will put so much lip service into like, we hate sex predators and we hate pedophiles and we'll kill them if we see them because we're big, strong men. But as soon as someone actually gets busted for something along these lines of being a creep, suddenly all of the excuses come out. It's like, oh, well, women make up things all the time, or we haven't heard both sides, or, I don't think the punishment fits the crime. And again, like, this guy's not being criminally prosecuted. He's just been asked to not train at a jiu-jitsu gym. People are talking about what happened here like this is some massive, huge life-destroying punishment that was applied to J-Rod. The dude was just literally told he can't train at a jiu-jitsu gym. That's all. Like, it's not the end of the world. He got off incredibly light, and I would hope that most people understand why B-Team decided to take this stance.
The one thing I would add to that, Steve, and I think you said that perfectly, is the one thing this has in common with the Cain Velasquez case is the defenders are actually taking a stronger line than the guy who got accused. Like, both J-Rod and Cain Velasquez kind of took responsibility and said, yeah, I agree, I did wrong things. And so it's interesting that the people that, I think it's an identity marker, right? And I think that the thing I want to lift up about what you said, Steve, which I was going to say also, is that I've heard so many people be like, well, if anybody had photos like that of my girlfriend, sister, friend, I would just kick their ass. And it's like, okay, but you won't support them not training and making all those other people feel uncomfortable? That seems weird.
Seems weird.
Yep. I got some interesting comments about this. I mean, I've heard people straight up say things like, the problem here is the women, not the men.
Come on.
And the problem is that, men need their traditional spaces where they can go and hang out without the influence of women coming in. And I just find that is just so fucked up to turn this around to make the victim the problem. But that is a common part of the playbook whenever these accusations come out. And that's part of the reason why it's so hard for women to come forward with these accusations, because there will inevitably be an army of weird incel bros who decide to go after the victim. Someone who's become a very good friend of mine recently is Claudia Doval, who had this exact experience where after she shared her story about Ricardo de la Riva's misconduct, a whole bunch of his weird fanboys made it their personal mission to ruin her life, right? And all that does is create a chilling effect that makes it harder for women to get justice and speak out when these things happen.
And there is nothing preventing these goofballs from starting a men's only fucking jiu-jitsu club. Go do it. I would rather you all be there than bothering my customers.
It's like flypaper.
Right. Exactly right. Please go do that and leave us alone.
Yeah, it's so weird.
It's like, Jeff, you once told me that one of your favorite things to do is when you get these crazy lunatics in your gym and you need to remove them, you just tell them, I think you're too hardcore for this gym. We're a casual gym. You need only the finest training. So why don't you go train at the UFC gym across town instead of coming here? I love that strategy.
100%. I learned that from my Southern wife, who has the art of telling people to go to hell, but they enjoy the trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually adopted this too. Every once in a while, I get a goofball in the BJJ Mental Models community, and when that happens now, I just tell them, I think Lachlan's submeta.io would be a better fit for you. You should go train with Lachlan. Only the finest digital content for you.
Amazing.
Well, I mean, what do we do about this going forward, though, right? Because people have asked, the big thing that I've heard is people are saying, well, J-Rod's career is over now. Do you guys really think that's the case?
Is Lloyd Irvin's career over?
Fair point. Is cyborgs?
Yeah, cyborgs. Exactly. Like, have these guys faced consequences?
Well, so I think this is one of the differences, right? And you were just mentioning it earlier, Jeff. J-Rod admitted wrongdoing, right? There is actually an opportunity for this to be a teachable moment, an inflection point for him. He's still a young guy. We don't have full frontal lobe development yet, right? He can come back from this. His career has not been necessarily sidelined. He goofed. There's some consequences. So no, this isn't a death sentence, in my eyes.
To quote the great sage CM Punk, the apology must match the disrespect. And I think it is important to point out here that, again, when we say that, look, this guy wasn't convicted of a crime or anything, I mean, this was a misconduct situation and it should be treated accordingly. I think there is an opportunity that over time he could redeem himself, right? It's like you said, Jesse, he goofed. He was held accountable. He took ownership of it. I think that, given time, if he, he does his reparations and if he very clearly advocates for the right thing and has a track record of doing the right thing for the next few years, I could see him getting another shot. I could also see people understandably being very cautious about having him in the gym. But again, I don't think this guy's career is necessarily over. I think there's a path to redemption for him, but he has to actually put in the work to do it.
Couldn't agree more.
Yep. Awesome. Well, anyway, there you go. Just a quick reaction video. I wanted to just address some of those comments since there were a lot of people kind of on the J-Rod side of the argument here, which I found quite surprising. So hope that was interesting for people. We'll talk to you in the next one. See you then.
See you guys.